Wild burro. She came out of Nevada, and she belongs to the Anspaugh family, but we wanted to show you the difference between a burro, or a donkey, and a mule. And as Caitlin said with her presentation, mules come from a mother horse, and Hank is a gelding, so he's not a mother, but they come from a horse. Their mother is a horse, and their daddy is a donkey, and Junie's a girl, but the daddy is a boy burro. So that's what the combination is to make a mule. And mules can't reproduce because they have 23 chromosomes. And so it's very rare that they ever reproduce. So they can't have babies. And our mules have, they have certain things they like to do. They love to go to the mountains. They're really good in the mountains. Some people shoe their mules and some people don't. We go in the Wind River Mountains a lot, so it's really rocky, so all our mules get shod. We put horseshoes on their feet to protect them. They love to, go out and trail ride with the kids. The kids can ride them bareback. They're really great to catch because the horses don't like to come up in our pasture, but the mules always will come and see us. They're real friendly. And people ask me if mules are hard to train, if they're harder than a horse. And technically, mules are just like training a horse. They just take me longer. So I spend almost twice as amount of time with a mule than I do with a horse to get just this far. Let's see, what else was I going to say? So we brought some pack stuff and a couple of our mules with pack things and Gary's going to throw a hitch on a couple of them so that you can see that. And Allie's riding her mule. That's Brandy Sue. She's the good kid mule.
And Brandy Sue was also the mule. Brandy Sue was also the mule I rode on first. She's a very, very good mule.
Great. It says, yeah, we can talk about hennies. Jennifer's been talking about mules, and she talked about, okay, kids, let's see if you're listening. Was the mommy, the burro, or the horse on a mule? Who said that? The horse, that's right. The mare, the mother, was a horse. Good job. And the daddy was the donkey, right? Right? Okay, so there is a way that it can happen in reverse. And it can be that what's the reverse of that? Oh, what, Claire? Oh, the mother's the donkey and the daddy is the horse, right? And that cross is called a henny. A henny, and that is more rare, and it's interesting when you figure out why, and it's because these animals right here, their ability to attack foreign things is a lot more stringent than horses. So because of that different chromosome number, they usually abort, and so that's why it's not always a successful relationship. So, Buck, would you like to say anything about Juniper before we have Gary come show us the pack? You're good? Buck just says he's the handler, so. All right, and then also I have a little note here. It says, donkeys have long ears and a loud bray. Is that just to be cute? Well, they say it's partially true. There's a reason for those long ears and that loud bray. Mother Nature was pretty smart when she developed this kind of donkey and mule. They evolved in the desert where food was scarce, and their loud brays allowed them to communicate with each other, and their long ears allowed them to hear these audio messages and help them dissipate some of that desert heat. And their tough, compact hooves are ideal for rocky conditions. So. And you look at the donkey right there. See that Freeze brand is just because it was adopted from the BLM. So that is a marking that you can tell it was a wild burro. Christy, do you want to say anything?
No, I was just about to show.
There's a Freeze brand. He's pulling it around. And does Junie still have a blog, Christy? Oh, okay. Okay, Juniper usually has a blog on the internet, but she's been a little busy. But if you go look up there, she has really done some good writing and communicating about living in Sublette County. So I don't know what's in the panniers, but I know I have a picture of one of our horses packing out a bathtub out of the backcountry. Does anyone know in the audience about how much weight a mule can pack? How much, sir? How much?
Depending on how far you're going.
He said it depends on how far you're going. There's probably some truth to that.
I load them down pretty good. Sometimes they're not.
Sometimes they're loaded good and sometimes they're not. I think it depends on the size of your mule and the proportion of their body weight. Maybe Gary can help us with that.
Maybe 100.
Let Gary catch his breath for just a minute. So would I leave like this? No, that's just an example. I want my loads to be balanced. What I'm looking for when I'm loading a mule is basically equal distribution. So I'm going to put the same amount on both sides. Generally, a mule is going to carry 12 to 14% of their body weight as a rule of thumb. Generally, we can load heavier for shorter distances, but if you load too heavy, you're going to reduce the lifespan of your livestock. Okay. Almost do better without it. So what can I pack on the mule? Pretty much anything you can find. I've packed anything from picnic tables, like the ones you're sitting in just for entertainment purposes, just to see if I could do it. Otherwise, backpacks that we would generally pack. I work for an outfitter for 4 summer seasons. So everything from your typical commercial backpacking gear to camp gear to propane tanks to trail crew supplies to 14-foot long 2x12s for bridge construction in the backcountry. So they're quite versatile. The mules, generally I choose to pack mules over horses because they carry a load more evenly. They're a little more balanced, if you will. If you look at the gelding over here to the right, most of his mass is carried over his front end, his shoulders, his neck. That's where all his power is. It's where he does all his movement from. The mules, you'll notice, are a lot tighter, a little narrower in the chest. Their weight is more evenly distributed throughout, and therefore they're a little nicer ride. They're smoother, a little more agile. You'll notice their feet, in comparison to the gelding over there, are substantially smaller. They fit into the rock cracks and crevices quite better than a horse will. So they're, being that they came from the burro or the donkey, they are very well adapted to adverse climate, rocky conditions and rocky terrain. So definitely my preferred way of travel, if you will, when I'm working in the high country. But we packed everything from, like I said, bathtubs to game meat, and quite a versatile animal. Any questions from anybody? That's kind of what I had in a nutshell.
Have you packed a 14-foot boat on one yet?
A 14-foot boat? Canoes, yes, absolutely. You bet. Did that in the Kern River Canyon in the High Sierras. Used to do it for kayaks and canoes.
Tell us why you cut down.
Oh, their mane, that's pretty classic. Why we roach their mane and their tail heads. Pretty typical of mule clips. And you'll see a variety of clips on mules. A lot of people will bell the tails. So you'll see the tail will be roached to the top, and then it'll look more like a Christmas tree. Come down and back in again, called belling the tails. And what they generally used to do in the military was they would basically give it a different clip for what they were, whether they were pack mules, riding mules, and identify them by that out in the herds. But my mules get clipped on the tail heads and the manes. Basically, when you're using them to pull with collars, you're hitching them as draft teams, or not draft, but using them as pulling teams. Anything you can do to reduce the amount of, like dirt, debris, hay, grass, that kind of stuff underneath the collar is preferred. So we clip them, keep them clean. And around the tail head, we use a crooper. And the crooper is to keep the saddle from sliding forward. So it's a leather strap that comes down underneath the tail head. So you want to keep that area clean.
Gary, I'd like you to address training a mule versus a horse, and what differences, or maybe Jennifer and Gary both could talk to them about that.
So as Jennifer mentioned before, we take a lot of mules in for training. It's funny, people hear that you train a mule and all of a sudden you got a bunch of them. But really not a lot of difference in training a mule versus a horse. Really the only difference is kind of time. So where a horse, you can teach him something one day, he'll go, okay, I got it the next day. A mule, you teach them and they go, now, are you sure that's what you meant? So you go back and you reinforce that the next day and say, yes, that's exactly what I meant, and this is how we're going to do it. So you carry that through into the following day. Can you speed it up and do it on the same time frame? You bet. But you have not got the quality product in the end. So generally when we take a gelding in or a horse in for training, we're usually taking a horse for 30 days. A mule, we want to guarantee a 60 days from the client when they bring some mule to train, just because we're going to have it that long to get what they're looking for. We want a quiet, gentle animal when it leaves our place. So it just takes a little bit longer, but quite smart, quite smart. Really big, the mules are in self-preservation. A horse, you can point him off a cliff and go, here's where we're going. And he'll go, okay. The mule, you're going to ask him, we're going off this way. He goes, no, I got a better way. We're going to go this way. So that's really the difference between the horses and the mules. They're real big into taking care of themselves, and generally that's what makes them so great to ride, is they're going to take care of you too. And yeah, there is, just like any horse, there is a great difference between a good mule and a bad one, just like there is between a good horse and a bad horse. The good horses, or the good mules, are worth having. The bad ones are definitely, just don't keep them around, because they can be really bad. So, my 2 cents. Anybody have any other questions? About what we do, why we do it, how we do it? Thank you. Good job.
Snow-Ann just asked me if mules cost more, and I think it's probably the same as a good horse costs. You know, you pay more money for a good horse, you're going to pay more money for a good mule. So you might find a mule that is less expensive, but I think you should always look to see what, you know, what it does, and, you know, there may be a reason why it's being sold less expensive. So, you know, in general, good mules cost more money. And we've been lucky that we've gotten some really good ones, either to train and we've been able to make them good, or people have helped us, you know, and so we haven't had to tail up, but mules do sell for quite a bit. Okay, so right now we're going to pull the packs, and we're going to talk about safety while Gary does that, because we would love for you to come up and pet our mules and love on them a little bit, because they really like that. But mules do like to kick. You know, we teach them to be safe, but especially this younger mule, this one we're working with right now, she, you know, when she has a temper tantrum, tends to kick a little bit, and she's not kicking at somebody. So if she starts to get nervous, we're going to take her out just so that we don't have any accidents. But when you're walking around a mule or a horse, any kind of big animal, you want to either walk way around them or walk really close to them. Because if you're walking really close to their hind end, then they can't get a good extension or a good reach, and they're just going to kind of bump you. So if you see us standing close to their hind end, that's why. So safety-wise, we just are going to want a couple of people around each one at a time. And if they start to get nervous, we're going to want people to step back so that we can give them their space. This isn't an ideal situation for our mules. They're not used to this. They're used to the mountains and being in our pasture, and they're not really show mules. So they're doing really good standing here. And we'll have some adults by each one. And we're just going to make sure that we kind of stay to the front of the mule, and you can come pet their nose and their chest and